G'day, this is Scotty Tucker from Clearwater Lakes and Ponds, sitting here with the editor of Pond Boss magazine, Mr. Bob Lusk. Bob, thanks for joining us once again. Algae, big problem. A lot of people build a pond with all the right intentions. They either want crystal clear water or they want to see their fish swimming around, but they can get overrun with algae. Now, one of the things that I always advise people that you identify, first of all, what is the actual algae. I quite often get phone calls saying my pond's full of algae and, what can I do? There is thousands of different species of algae, and there's different treatments for different types of algae. You might have planktonic algae that's turns your water green like pea soup, and you just can't see a foot deep in the water. You might have string algae that forms clumps, and you can pull it apart, and as the name suggests, it's quite stringy. You can also have algae that starts on the bottom of the pond, floats up to the top. Different types of string algae will do that. So there's any number of different types of algae, and along with that is different types of algal control. So if we talk, first of all, let's have a look at the green water. What sort of options can you look at for controlling green water?
Well, Scott, the first thing, you hit the nail right on the head. You have to know what you're dealing with. I mean, I got a call last week from a guy that said, I have been treating my algae with copper sulfate. I treated it 3 times this summer, and it won't die. I think it's mutated. So I said, well, can you take a picture, a digital photograph, and email it to me? Which he did. Wasn't algae at all. It was a plant that is far from algae. So you're right. You got to identify the plant. Well, when you've got water algae, the first thing that I think you need to think about is microbes. While microbes, especially in the United States, aren't labeled for use to kill algae, they're labeled for use to manage algae. And there's a big difference. Microbes don't kill anything. What they do is they interrupt the life cycle by decomposing, like little Pac-Man, eating the decaying algae and binding the nutrients that feed the algae in the first place. So they disrupt that life cycle. Now, one thing about microbes is you have to inoculate and maybe do it again and then do it again. So it's not a one-shot deal, but it's certainly a natural way to do it. A second way is to use an approved algicide. Most of the algicides in the United States are copper-based. Most of the time they're chelated copper, which makes them safe to use in water. You can use those, depending on the type of algae, the label will tell you the concentration of that herbicide to use and how to use it. You have to get to a certain milligrams per liter content, for example, to kill planktonic algae, which is different than trying to eliminate filamentous algae or the clump algae that you're talking about. So those are two of the things that cross my mind. I'm sure you've got some thoughts on that too. What share with our audience what you're thinking.
Well, I've got to say I'm a fan of the microbes. I think the microbes, as with most things in life, prevention is better than cure. If you're overfeeding your fish, that's one of the things that will encourage algae, so cutting back on your feed is going to help. But once you get feed and excess nutrients, if you've got runoff, if you've got grassland over next to your pond on the side of a hill and you fertilise and it ends up in the water, the algae just says thank you very much. So what the microbes can do is get in there and, as Bob just mentioned, start reducing some of the nutrients that builds up in the sediment and also in the water column, and essentially starve out the algae. Now, one of the things with microbes that they really need to work more efficiently or work at their best is aeration. So you certainly should be looking at aeration for your pond. Aeration just helps everything. Your pond is a biological process, or the processes that go on in your pond is biological, and as we all know, oxygen is a key component of just about every biological process going around. So aeration will certainly help in that regard. Also, with some of the other planktonic algae, depending on the size of your pond, if it's a recreational pond or an urban pond out in your backyard, you might look at things like ultraviolet light. Very cost effective, very easy to use, very effective. But when you start getting into ponds the size of which we're sitting in front of here, UV light really becomes cost prohibitive. And you touched on copper sulfate. Copper sulfate in Australia was used quite extensively over the years, but it's since been regulated out. but we're lucky enough to have some very good chelated copper products back in Australia as well. So there are products that can be used. One of the things with the copper treatments, though, is that you've always got to make sure your alkalinity is at a sufficient level, especially if you've got fish. A couple of reasons. One is that it simply won't work as effectively if the alkalinity in the water is not at a good level, and more importantly, if you've got soft water or water with low alkalinity, then you're pretty much going to kill everything in your pond if you're not careful. So chelated copper products are a great tool, but they do need to be used with a bit of caution. So you need to do some water testing before you use them. Now, just on string algae, some of the string algae, the filamentous type of algae. One of the things that I recommend to people, if it's not out of control, if it's not too bad, just accept it. You know, it's a plant. It's a plant life like anything else. It's taking nutrients out of the water. So long as it's not out of control, a good little bit of algae is not going to do much harm. When it starts growing out of control, that's where it's an issue. The microbes are certainly going to help in that regard. Putting in some more aquatic plants to help starve out the nutrient is also a good option. And then back at the herbicides and the colorants and taking it out of the water. Any other thoughts or options that you've got on some of the filamentous algae, benefits or problems that it can cause?
Well, as I listen to you speak, the one thought that I had about algae is that it has a certain temperature window of growth. Now, depending on the species, you'll have to address Australia. I'm going to address the United States. Algae tends to grow in water temperatures that are less than 80 degrees, maybe 75, but not any cooler than 55. So typically what happens is in the springtime we'll see algae, but by the time summer gets here it disappears. It's all gone. So, keep in mind that your algae may grow for 6 or 8 weeks depending on the latitude in which you live, and then it's going to disappear. So it runs through its life cycle, and if you can live with it for a few weeks, it tends to disappear. If your pond gets to the point that it's there for longer than that, then you need to start looking at some treatment options. Now, we're very fortunate here to have tilapia that we can use. Tilapia is a tropical fish. I know that there's regions of Australia where tilapia were introduced as a food fish. I don't know if you can use them or not, but if not, there's some other fish that will actually eat algae. So we use tilapia quite often in states in the United States where they're legal. Some states they're not legal, some states they are. In Texas, where we live, they're legal. So we'll stock them at a rate of maybe 15 or 20 pounds per acre, which cost a couple of $100 per acre. But when the choice is to stock tilapia that can also reproduce and add to the food chain temporarily before they die in the winter when the water gets cold, it's oftentimes more cost effective than using an algicide. So, somebody might spend $300 a year on an algicide in a 1 acre pond when they could spend $200, have tilapia, add to the food chain to their recreational fishery, and accomplish two things at once. So I'd be a little creative and look at some of the fish that you might have available to you through some of the hatcheries that are algae eaters, and look and see how they might fit into the environment, and that could be a good choice for you.
Very good. It'd be great to have some of those fish back at home. We have a couple of species. Silver perch is one that springs to mind that some people promote as being good eaters of filamentous algae. But really, I think a key component of it is the prevention. Is looking at the design of your pond, the depth of the pond, making sure that you're not catering to the conditions that in which algae can grow. So prevention is better than cure, like we said before. All right, Bob. Once again, thank you very much.